Hey, what's up, Street Talks? Eric from the Eric Street Photography Blog, currently in the suburbs of LA. So I wanted to give you a practical, hands-on review of the new Lumix G9 Pro. Long story short, I think it is the best and the coolest new camera that exists in the market. So I was at Big Camera in Japan and testing all the different cameras and stuff like that, and to be honest, they're all pretty boring. They're all pretty much the same thing. And to be frank, there's all the digital cameras nowadays are all fantastic. And the reason why I chose the Lumix G9 Pro was my buddy Dave from Singapore gave Cindy, freaking crows in the background. This is one of the downsides of living in the suburbs. Anyways, so my buddy Dave from Singapore, he gave Cindy a camera to shoot with, which is the Lumix LX100, and I'm like, man, Lumix is lame. It's like, you know, kind of, they're trying to do these like fake Leica branded lenses, blah blah. And honestly, I don't know too much about that. But anyways, so I was testing it out and shooting with it, and I actually ended up really liking it, surprisingly, because they have this mode called IA mode. It stands for Intelligent Auto, and essentially it's like automatic mode on crack, and it's so fast and it's so accurate, and now I don't even have to think before taking the photo in terms of the technical settings and stuff like that. I could just point and click, and the reason why this is so empowering for me is that it allows me to focus on more meaningful things like composition, framing, interacting with my subjects. And not only that, but this new lens, it's like co-branded with Leica and Lumix. It's a 12mm 1.4, you know, quote Lumix lens. And if you just look around the branding, the bottom says made in Japan and the side says Lumix. So effectively, I mean, like, once again, like, I don't really understand 100% sure how this even works. Is that, like, to my understanding, it's not a quote real Leica lens. It's maybe like co-designed or co-produced with Leica. But anyways, the lens is pretty amazing. And honestly, I'm not that big of a sucker for image quality, but generally I just keep it in A mode, and I'm just keeping essentially Intelligent Auto mode. And what I also love about the Lumix G9 Pro is when you're shooting Intelligent Auto, it really chooses super good, the correct exposure, chooses the correct autofocusing points. And even the G9 Pro, I mean, it's a pretty, like, it's not like the world's lightest camera, but it's pretty, how do you say? It's really well balanced. This hand grip here in the front is superb, and the LCD screen looks awesome. And essentially, it's so funny because technically it's supposed to be a pro camera for, like, I think they're trying to market it towards people who shoot birds and shoot sports, but it's so good for street photography because it's so fast, it's super crazy accurate, and I've just been like having so much more fun with photography. And also because it's a micro four thirds sensor, everything is essentially in focus. And one lesson with micro four thirds is when you're shooting with micro four thirds, there's so many benefits in street photography. So first and foremost, so you can see in the front, it says it's a 12mm lens. So with the crop factor, it's actually roughly a 24mm full frame equivalent. Man, these fucking crows in the background. Anyways, so the benefit of that is if you're shooting at f8, you're actually shooting at f16, which means that there's more things which are in focus. And I think that's beneficial in street photography because no matter what, all your photos are going to be mostly in focus. And also with the smaller sensor size of the micro four thirds, the autofocus is much faster and more accurate. So I'm not exactly 100% sure about the technology, but, you know, for example, when you shoot with a digital medium format, the autofocus is way slower and not nearly as accurate because you don't get as much stuff that's in focus. And also, yeah, things I like about the camera, I generally have been shooting some video on too. The video on this thing is freaking amazing. So for a long time I was thinking about Micro Four Thirds. I'm like, man, Micro Four Thirds is pretty cool, and I knew a lot of my friends who shot with Olympuses, like my friend Neil Ta or my friend Josh White. They're pretty big proponents of the Olympus OMD cameras, and also a lot of Magnum photographers shot with them. And yeah, they're like, the autofocus is so fast and accurate, it's almost like cheating. But I never really kind of jumped on board because I was like, oh, I already have my Ricoh GR2, and honestly I think the Ricoh GR2 is probably the best camera generally for street photography. But my Ricoh GR2 died. Essentially the aperture blades got stuck after using it for like 2 years, which is a pretty good run for only 600 bucks. But yeah, anyways, really onto the new Lumixes. The reason why I chose Lumix over other brands like Olympus. I mean, Olympus also makes fantastic cameras, but really it's for this intelligent auto mode. I cannot describe how awesome or epic it is. So if you're interested in, you know, a new camera for street photography, to be frank, I think like 99% of street photographers probably will not like the Lumix G9 Pro. Like, it's kind of, I mean, it's not like the coolest looking camera. I mean, if you want a cool looking camera, better get a Fuji or Olympus Pen F or get a Leica. But in terms of just capturing the decisive moment, there's essentially nothing that beats it. And of course, gotta pimp out the new Henri shoulder strap in Phantom Black with all these new beautiful details. Also, there's going to be a link of that in the description below. And yeah, like, treat your photography, you know, like, don't care how cool your camera looks. I mean, like, obviously I kind of care, to be honest, but at the same time, the most important thing is for you to capture decisive moments of your everyday life. Also have a more in-depth review of the Lumix G9 Pro, description below. Alright, so remember, the most important thing in photography, regardless of where you are or where you live, just shoot, make photos which bring you joy, and don't miss the decisive moment. Peace out.